Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today we're going to talk about a pretty interesting topic, the Western entertainment segment. There is so much that you've done over in this segment, and now it's become a part of mainstream culture. We see a lot more. There's this lifestyle side of it that has become more prominent, and there's just so many different Western sports properties that are exciting and interesting that you've been involved in. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here, Ben. Happy to join the show and give you a little bit of the journey and what's happening in the Western space.
Awesome. So just kind of starting off here, like, how did you get interested in Western entertainment and media in general? Like, what made you want to go on this path in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent the better part of my career in media, predominantly around sports, usually more traditional sports, but some non-traditional environments as well, since the rise of sort of the creator economy and some of the stuff I did in that space. I also was more recently the chief revenue officer of Barstool Sports. So both, the more traditional side, ESPN, Major League Baseball, and other digital sports media properties in the college sports space, as well as some of those non-traditional spaces. And I've always been, in my career, really intrigued by the intersection of sports and media, or digital media and sports, I should say, and the impact that is having on the consumption of those sports, the fan experience overall. And so, to give you an example, like my time at ESPN.com, and it will date me a little bit, is like we were putting highlights on the homepage for the first time. It was when they were just finally able to be enough broadband to contemplate, video on the internet at scale. Major League Baseball, advanced media, when I was there, was the first professional sports league, and really any league, to stream live games and do it at scale on the internet with the launch of MLB.TV. And so, always have chased or looked for those opportunities that were the companies within the sports media landscape that are pushing the boundaries on how the media is changing and evolving, how the fan experience is changing and evolving, and being on the leading forefront of that. Barstool Sports was an amazing business in that, we were a big juggernaut brand in sports, and they certainly continue to be with some of the recent partnerships they've forged with Fox Sports and others. Without any live rights to any sport, without any highlight rights to any sport, without any linear network or distribution. So it was really all personality driven, digital, social, podcast, media driven. And so I've really been at the intersection in my career of like the rise of YouTube creators, how podcasting has impacted the sports media landscape. So it's been an exciting journey because there's like always something new. You're always learning a new medium and how to use that medium to engage fans and create content, how to create monetization opportunities around those new and different points of distribution. The Western space definitely was not on my radar for a very long time or at all. I've been to rodeos and, for fun here and there, but not as a follower of the sport and really understanding the inner workings of it and the professional athletes that exist in this space and how to follow the sport, through the entirety of a season. Just more like, hey, a rodeo is a fun thing to attend and go with some friends a couple times in your life. I was approached about this opportunity, and when I kind of got into it and looked at one, the breadth of assets that Teton Ridge already had under management, they had come in to this category, and through both building things new and acquiring things that had previously existed, and with the goal of creating kind of a unified Western sports and media company, there was a lot of clay already here to work with, as well as a lot of opportunity to reinvent it in some of the ways that I was talking about earlier. But also that this sport is a lot larger than people know it to be, if they haven't been in it and haven't really experienced it, or done the homework to understand what are the comps in terms of audience size, fandom, sheer volume of events, and the attendance to those events. So as I kind of peeled back the hood on that a little bit, I was pretty shocked at, how from a sports perspective, how meaningful this is, and yet how fragmented it had always been, and therefore no one had ever really pulled it all together in a cohesive way from a television perspective, from a digital perspective, from a storytelling perspective. There's just so much opportunity. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to do that, but I really saw it as a white space. Also, having worked, a lot in my career with brands and sponsors and working, in the brand advertising space, I look at the Western space and it's really untapped, which is rare in sports today. You go to a NASCAR race, you go to a college football, turn on a college football broadcast or an NFL broadcast or any sport really, and it is saturated. And so for brands, what you often hear them saying is like, how do I stand out in this environment amongst all the other brands? Or how do I own the sport when, so many competitors have different ways in? the Western space is like, we're creating a sort of centralized place where a brand can come in and really create a meaningful presence in this space through one platform. And that had never existed before. In order to really have impact here, you have to go do partnerships with 10 to 50 different rodeos. And then there was no television property really delivering a unified solution. And so we're working on a lot of that stuff, which I can get into. I just saw the business case here being really intriguing and exciting. And so I jumped in just about 2 years ago. And every day is a learning experience because this is the oldest sport in America and one of the oldest sports in the world. And so there's so much history, so much heritage, so much nuance to it. And, as soon as you start getting into it and following, you start picking up things faster. But it's really hard to go back and learn the whole history that came for hundreds of years before I stepped into this.
Yeah. So can you dive into that a little bit more of like what you're doing now?
Yeah. By the way, Ben, have you been to a rodeo?
I've not, but I've of course like seen rodeos online and stuff. And recently I came more like in contact with just the whole fan base that this whole ecosystem has. It's pretty massive, and I was surprised at like how big the sport is, and I just wasn't aware of that. Wasn't aware of the enthusiasm around it. It's pretty amazing. So now with all the content you guys are doing and stuff, I think it's going to get even bigger.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting right now, what's happening in culture is, and if you can be like part of the zeitgeist and at the center of culture, there's so much opportunity in that. Everything I just said coming in, I looked at and knew to be true. What I don't know that I fully anticipated was how much Western culture has really penetrated all of culture, certainly here in the U.S., but even more now in some key global markets, which I can talk about a little bit. But I think it's never been there. The cowboys and cowgirls would say this, so I don't think it's lame for me to say it's never been cooler to be cowboy. And you see that in everything from fashion to music to art, showing up everywhere you look. You go walk through the streets of New York City or even Paris, and you will see nod to Western culture in fashion weeks and in billboards and advertising everywhere. I think Flo from the Progressive Insurance commercials. I recently saw a commercial where she's got a cowboy hat on. Like, it's just popping everywhere. Also, country music is having a huge renaissance, right? And so there's a real crossover between Western culture and country music, obviously, but also like that those two things are lifting one another up. And certainly, when you go to any of the major rodeos, there's typically there's country music playing, but also there's usually an artist that's headlining at one of the main events. And so you're seeing that as more people are following and listening to the likes of Lainey Wilson, for example, then you're going to have those fans, those new young fans, come to a rodeo to see her perform potentially. Or there's so many great artists. We had Riley Green, Bailey Zimmerman, Ella Langley at the American Rodeo last year. And again, that just brings that next generation of fans in. And then our job is to make sure they're not just there for the concert, but they're actually there to become fans of rodeo. And we put a lot more emphasis on the sport now than the music, just because we really care about like building the sport, growing the sport, and creating fans for life. So a lot of what we're doing, the last 12 months, November of 24, we acquired a company called the Cowboy Channel, cable TV network predominantly linear with some social media extensions, but really focused on a linear TV product for cable.
Mhm.
Cowboy Channel is the exclusive media rights holder to all of the PRCA rodeos, which is Pro Rodeo Cowboy Association. There are over 600 sanctioned rodeos in North America annually. And that's a lot. That's a very big number, but
Yeah.
so that speaks to how big of a sport this is. There are thousands of active PRCA members that compete in rodeos. This is part of their lifestyle. Some are competing at a very high level, some less so. The goal for those athletes in the PRCA is to qualify for the National Finals Rodeo, which is like the Super Bowl and playoffs, all wrapped up into 10 nights in Las Vegas in December. And the pro Cowboys and Cowgirls are all trying to get into that top 15 qualified spots in their discipline for the rodeo in December. And then the American rodeo, our rodeo, we invite the best athletes in the world who are the top 5 finishers from each discipline at the NFR to come participate in the American. But we also have a tournament of qualifiers, which is an international circuit, essentially, that athletes can come compete in to win a chance to come compete against the best athletes in the world. So similar to like a US Open format in golf. And that's been growing increasingly. 2 years ago, we partnered with Fox Sports. So our championship weekend airs on Big Fox, the network, the broadcast network. And then our tournament of qualifiers will be airing on FS1. So we've been able to get a sport that hadn't really ever seen broadcast TV distribution onto one of the biggest sports networks in our country, as well as the lead up to that. And now with the Cowboy Channel under management, we're also able to do storytelling all throughout the year around the standings of what's going. Like right now is the bubble watch for the National Finals Rodeo. So it's September. This weekend is the last PRCA rodeo that athletes can compete in to get into those top 15 standings. There's large money at stake. So there's a whole bubble watch going on. I'll be going tomorrow to Sioux Falls to watch that rodeo unfold. And there'll be some real exciting wins and some heartbreak for those that maybe aren't there, and others are going to jump ahead of them in the standings. So, I think what we need to do is make sure we're using all of our media, the Cowboy Channel, all of the social and digital extensions of that brand to educate fans and get them excited to really lean in and follow this the way they follow other sports. No one's done that really well in the past, and we're pretty committed to doing that.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating that that's your goal here, because I think there's such an amazing fan base you already have. It's now just about extending it. And I like what you're doing on the brand partnership side. You're bringing in, pretty mainstream brands that are involved with other sports that just haven't been involved with this sport before. And I think that's going to really help a lot.
Yeah, like we launched a show, we piloted it last season, and then this season we went full launched 9 different markets with a show called Rodeo Live, which is an on location pre-show similar to College Game Day or Big Noon Kickoff or any of the other major sports networks kind of on location shows. We hired a really exceptional producer to make that show look the quality that you're used to seeing on the main sports networks. And next year, that's going to go to 12 markets. And we had a number of sponsors come in. Tractor Supply was the presenting sponsor this year, so really tightly integrated into the set and all of the content and promotion. So that was exciting. Big change for rodeo. And it's actually had a result in the rodeos that we went to and had a rodeo live lead into the main live event have seen a 21% increase in ratings. So on just the Cowboy Channel, which we're working really hard to expand the distribution of Cowboy Channel to be not just linear, but also streaming and digital. And we'll have some announcements in the coming weeks about what that looks like in terms of the platforms that it will soon be available on. That's sort of the new frontier. Like we talked about digital streaming like early on in those earlier days of my career. Like right now, what's happening in media and how it's changing is really probably some of the biggest changes we've ever seen, right? Cable TV and broadcast to a degree, but really cable's in a steady decline. And here we are with a new cable network that we've just acquired. The streaming numbers are way up, but there's a lot of platforms. And so kind of understanding your audience and knowing where you need to be to meet them as they move from one platform to the next, and maybe cut the cord on cable, but maybe they're streaming on Hulu or Tubi or Roku or YouTube TV. That is the thing that is happening right now. The tectonic plates on the television side are really shifting, and everybody's kind of hanging on to dear life on the linear side because they have a nice model there. They know how to monetize that. There's, they're set with their Nielsen ratings. And then over here on the streaming side, it's a little bit of the next frontier for TV. And that's actually our tagline right now for Teton Ridge as a whole is the frontier is not behind us, it's what's next. And so our mentality is to push towards the new and the next. But we also have to really understand that our audience is a lot of rural Americans in the center of the country that still have cable subscriptions or subscribe to DirecTV and Dish via satellite. And so that is important for us to maintain those points of distribution while also going to the next generation platforms.
How are you thinking about content? Because Barstool has an amazing content strategy, and their audience has really grown through that. Like, are you thinking there's something that needs to be evolved in the content that's been done to get maybe a new audience interested in this that really watches a lot of other sports through content? Is there stuff you can do? Like you have this TV show you were talking about. Is there stuff around that you're trying to do content wise to maybe build the brand even more on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of new things need to be done. And the great thing is there's so much access in this sport, through our partnership with the PRCA, through our ownership of the American Rodeo. And just generally the athletes in this sport are hungry for more exposure. So they're available and accessible, unlike some of the other sports where everyone's really guarded up with agents and all this stuff is like, we want to tell the stories of these athletes. So, we went into the national finals the last year and filmed a series around the bareback athletes, which is one of the most challenging of sports in rodeo, and we have some really intense sort of extreme athletes. And we have filmed their last 2 seasons, and we're going to be releasing that this year around the national finals. That's a series, a docu-follow called Untamed. It features some of the best athletes in the sport. And not only did we film at the NFR last year, but we also then followed up and went to their homes and met their families and tell the whole stories of like who they are, why are they in this sport, what does this all mean to them, what's at stake, what's on the table, what's it like to be a rodeo athlete that travels, most of the year while you have a young family at home. There's a lot of like really interesting storytelling going on there. So that is exciting. And the Cowboy Channel has sort of launched into this, we've up-leveled the live product to make it look like professional sports as much as you can in the kind of arenas that they're in.
Great.
Then was the shoulder programming I talked about. Now it's this storytelling element, as well as our shoulder programming, really making sure we're keeping the fans informed of like following the sport. We also have an entertainment division. So our LA office is focused on scripted film and TV projects. And they have a full slate that they've developed over the past 18 to 24 months that they're now going to market with to other platforms. So interestingly, there is like, these are shows for television and film that might end up in theaters or could end up on Netflix or Amazon or any of the other major platforms. And the goal there is to really expand the flywheel and bring more audience in ultimately to the genre, right? Through more scripted content. So we're really kind of building this flywheel that ultimately, hopefully we can pull people in different ways. And that's exciting because we have some really exciting things coming down the pike on the more highly produced side of things as well.
We have a lot going on. It's exciting.
We do. We have a lot going on. We also are launching an e-commerce business. So, we're very, very nascent in that space. And yet, meanwhile, like all of the Western brands that we work with are seeing, record increases in terms of both online and retail. And so we're going to be launching a lot more in that space.
What does that look like?
TBD. We just onboarded our new head of e-commerce. He's going to, build out our Shopify experience. We're doing some testing. We own the one of the PBR teams. We own the Arizona Ridge Riders. So we're starting with a merch drop there around their big event, which is in October. So we'll have, specialty merch around the Ridge Riders. We'll use our athletes to help us, model and promote the products. And that'll be our first real test from an e-com standpoint. Then in Q4 with the national finals in December, we own a brand called Rodeo Vegas, which is like the unofficial after party of the NFR. And that brand does really well when we turn it into merch, whether we're giving it away or selling it. So we're bringing that into our e-commerce store as well, because we've typically just sold it on location at the national finals, but there's a limit to how much you can sell in that kind of environment. So a lot more to come on that, hopefully, and collabs with athletes, our partners, as we produce new shows. We want to partner with the athletes to help them develop, merchandise that then we can help them, they can market, and we can help facilitate the sales of. So very early days there.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. It's like you're building a new league, basically. There's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. The beauty is it has existed a very long time, right, and there is a very large audience, fan base, and community around this sport. We're not having to build something from scratch. Another thing that I find really interesting when you compare Western sports to other professional sports is it's got, oddly, it's going to sound odd to you, but it has similarities to like golf. And what I mean by that is a lot of the core endemic fans of rodeo ride horses, live on ranches, and so the endemic brands, like, they're wearing boots, they're wearing cowboy hats, they need feed for their animals, they need veterinarian services. So a lot of those endemic brands that would advertise in this space, it's because not only the athletes are using these products, but the fans are as well. That's why I liken it to golf, similar. Football fans are not running out to store to buy pads and helmets, right? So, but we also really want to pull in the non-endemic brands because I think there's a big white space here for a brand that is brave and wants to come in and really engage a community of really loyal followers. And what we see is this is an audience of people who really appreciate the brands that step into the space. And want to support that because this is what they love. This is what they do. So that's exciting. And then another kind of next gen thing that we're doing, which we're really amped about, and it'll start to show up in our broadcast this December for the national finals, is bringing AI to rodeo, which, given all we're doing, it sounds like a Herculean effort, but our ownership group, TWG Global, put together an AI team this year, and they're doing a lot across all of TWG Sports properties. But they came to us and said, what's interesting about rodeo is it's very accessible. There is a governing body in the PRCA, but it's not it's not as strict and stringent as some of the other professional sports. So we were able to bring AI technology into some of the major rodeo events this summer and start testing. And for the national finals broadcast, we'll have AI stats and analytics in our broadcast for the first time ever in the history of the sport, and kind of unlike what you're seeing really anywhere else. And that'll then translate into how we bring AI into our Fox broadcasts for the Americans. So we're really, really fired up about that. It's very, very new. We were just at Fast Company's Innovation Festival, kind of giving people a sneak peek into it last week, and people were really excited to see it.
That's awesome. So just the last question I have, what does this look like 5 to 10 years from now from all the effort you're putting in now?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. I mean, our goal, our mission is to elevate the sport, grow the sport through all of the things that we've just described, right? So the hope is that in their strategy, not hope, is that, we go from being a participant in the industry to the authority. And so that's what we're working towards. It's we have a clear, direct path to that now, and we're very focused. And I think that it's achievable. And like I said, there's a lot of interest in what we're doing, given the zeitgeist of it all. So that halo effect is helping as well.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think what you've done already is really fascinating and great for this space. And you mentioned how much more there's to go. It's exciting to see that there's a lot of energy and effort invested in making the sport just so much bigger. There's a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see how Teton Ridge just takes over this space and continues to scale. So thanks for coming on and doing this.